In this tutorial, we're going to take a textured mesh from Mudbox and render it in Maya with Mental Ray. This is a mesh I made earlier, and it's in Mudbox. It's made out of several quite important layers, such as decals and scratches, as well as engines, and most importantly, the layer that I'm going to use as the main bump map, which is this all the paneling and stuff like that. So in Mudbox, just to get this ready as a bump map, all you have to do is right click in an empty area down here. At the moment everything is a diffuse layer, which is just a standard way that an image presents itself. So we're going to right click in this empty area under here and go to new layer, and instead of the standard diffuse layer we're going to choose a bump map. I'm going to name it bump as well, and the size of it should be the same size as any other as your diffuse, which for me is 4K. So hit OK on that, hit yes to any error messages that appear, and then immediately go to your layer that contains the maybe paneling or rivets and things that you want to use as a bump map, and right click, duplicate that layer, and then move that duplicated layer down into this bump map here. Oh, hang on. And make sure that's on the top layer. I'm going to delete this extra layer here as well. I don't need that now. So my bump map layer just has this on at the moment. If you zoom in, it's going to look really ugly in Mudbox. Most likely the things that you would expect to go inwards are poking outwards, and we can sort that all out in Maya in a moment. So now to get this into Maya, we go to File, Send to Maya, and you can send the selected as a new scene, or you can add it to a current scene, and that's quite easy to do. If you do this, I usually go into the path template, and just in this folder up here, I will make sure that I choose my Maya projects directory, and I'll choose an appropriate project. And I can save this in here. I can maybe make a new Mudbox folder and have it export all of its images and everything into there. Sometimes this doesn't work, so if Send to Maya doesn't work, the safest way of exporting to Maya is to go to File, Export Selection. Oh, before you do that, you have to hit Control-A to select everything. If you do want to deselect anything, by the way, just go to your Select tab here and just click there to deselect. So I'm going to hit Control-A and go File, Export Selection, and I'm going to choose a place for this to go. I'm just going to make a new folder called Mudbox Mesh. And so that's within the Maya project that I'm actually working on. And now I can see in Windows, if I open up my Maya project area where I've got all my scenes and everything like that, what I just named Mudbox Mesh Vehicle has appeared here as an FBX file. And if you're wondering where the textures are that it's saved, there should be a folder with an identical name up here as well. And if you double click on that, you can see your textures inside there. I only chose to use a bump map and my diffuse, and I can see if I double click on this, this is what my vehicle looks like if it was unwrapped. So now that I know that it's actually exported something from Mudbox into my Maya project directory, I can open up a Maya scene. And considering that as long as you've saved this Maya scene into that Maya project, you can now go and also make sure that you've set projects to that Maya scene, that Maya project directory as well. After you've done that, you can then go to Import. And if you've set your scene correctly, it should take you straight to probably the scenes folder of your Maya project. I'm going to come out of folder and I'm going to go to find the mesh that I just exported, and I can go ahead and hit import on that. Now when you've imported your mesh, your shaders should automatically appear. If you still can't see any textures, make sure you click on the texture view button or hit 6 on the keyboard to make sure that you can see everything properly. And you first of all notice that your bump maps are still looking really quite ugly in Maya. So they're going to be the first thing that we're actually going to sort out. To get to them isn't actually that easy. If we click on any part of your mesh, any object at all, and then go over to your attribute editor at the top, you should be able to go to find the material. I think before I exported mine to Mudbox, I named it Checker. So it's popped up here as Checker 2. If you're having trouble finding that tab, try deleting history, but it should be okay. I can see that the color has the input of the diffuse from Mudbox, and then I can also see down here that bump mapping has something input as well, and I can see that it's bringing in the right file. What I do want to do is change how bumpy this bump map is, and to do that I've got to go into the hypershader. So I'll go to Window, Rendering Editors, Hypershade, and then I will go and find the shader that makes up my vehicle, which for me is called Checker 2. I'll right click on that and go to Graph Network, and now at the bottom in your work area you should see a giant network of everything that is plugged into this shader, which includes a bump map. You'll see like a little checker board shape in there, which is the actual bump map information, telling you how deep it should be. So if you click on that, and if you have your attribute editor open on the right hand side, you should see bump value and bump depth. All we need to do, if I zoom into my model, I should go over to let's say bump depth and drag that down to perhaps a negative value. Again, if you do it too deep, things start to go a bit crazy. I'm just going to do mine to about minus 0.3 seems to be fine for me. Anything beyond that, things are going to get a bit too crazy. Now, sometimes if you're modeling in Maya for Mudbox, you do bear in mind any objects that you might need to that might be duplicated near the end. So if you're doing a mech, maybe you will only model one leg and then export a mech with one leg into Mudbox, texture that one leg, and then bring it back into Maya. And now you can duplicate that leg, and the whole point of that is to save on precious UV space. So if I open up my UV editor, I can see if I click on this mesh right here, I can see it's appearing over here. If there are two lots of this mesh, it would take up obviously double the amount of space and reduce the amount of pixel information for everybody else. So I know that there's going to be a similar piece of geometry on the left hand side of my vehicle, so I purposefully did not UV map another piece, and so I just completely deleted it and only textured one piece in Mudbox, which also saves time. So now I'm ready to duplicate this textured piece to the other side. So I'll hit Control D, and as I move it over, I can then, I need to flip it exactly over the x-axis. So I'll go to my channel box for this, which you can also get to by clicking at the top, and then I will just hit R for resize and drag the shape inside out the other way. As I'm doing this, I should see either my scale X or scale Y axis starting to freak out. So I can see the scale X axis is the one that's active. So I'll just type in -1 exactly in there. And now that is flipped perfectly like that. The issue at the moment is that it is now probably gone pure black if you're doing anything that's come from a Mudbox. To solve this is to go to Freeze Transformations, which is Modify Freeze Transformations. If that ever does not work, you can also go to normals, set to face, and obviously sometimes you might even need to reverse or normals as well. But reverse normals, set to face, or freeze transformations should fix any issues you have after flipping or reversing geometry. So I'm just going to pop that in there, and now I've got a mirrored piece of geometry. And we're now ready to start setting up lighting for this mesh.